chaplains are on the sidelines. Football chaplains are right there on the field. I mean, they're into it. They're just as much a part of the team as any of the players, but from a spiritual level.
Wherever you are, this is the Christian Athlete, My Story.
Fly ball deep into right field, going and going, gone. A 3-run home run.
Shooting a ricochet. Oh, what a stop! That's an amazing save.
Betsy King has won her third Nabisco Dinosaur Championship.
Well, you fought off all the kids, so I'm sure the veterans are very happy.
I'm sure they are. It's a great day for me as a Christian, too, celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But, to win the third dinosaur on this day makes it extra special.
Heaven is a city built by jewels grand.
Hello, everyone. My name is Barry Sharp, and together with Bill Wilms, thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be encouraged today as we meet with another outstanding athlete from the world of sport who enjoys a special relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
Our guest today is a team chaplain for the National Hockey League Vancouver Canucks, also the CFL BC Lions. Welcome, Dave Klassen.
Hey, thank you.
Dave, I know you've been an athlete in your time and a very good one, and we obviously know that you're a born-again believer. We want to talk about both of those areas as well, and that's the focus of our program. But we also want to talk first and foremost about your role as a team chaplain. How much preparation is there in this for you, and how well is this all received by coaches and ownership? And take us a little bit through the whole area that you spend most of your time in.
Well, I think in general for most athletes, what happens when you become an athlete? You got to deal with fans, you got to deal with your teammates, you have, family members. Especially when you're a professional, you start to isolate yourself and you start to pull yourself away from people. It's expected because the reality is that you have to be focused. You're trained to eliminate those things that are going to be distractions in your life. The problem with it is through isolation, there's a lot of loneliness attached to it. And your circle of friends, your circle of those people that influence you becomes less and less. Therefore, who do you talk to? Who do you go to? You can't go to the guy across the locker room to you because he can't know if you're afraid or you're struggling with something. You're not going to go to your general manager or your coach. So who do you talk to? A lot of times it's a parent, but many times it's got to be someone that actually can help you through something, through a transition, through a difficult issue, or through something that maybe is a hurdle for you.
Obviously, we deal with physical needs, we deal with mental needs. You're looking at a spiritual component to the athlete. Are they concerned? Are they aware of a spiritual need? Are they searching for answers in some of those key areas of life?
Well, I think everybody's searching for answers in a lot of different things. Our primary focus is to help the person, the whole person. So we're not necessarily always attacking things from a spiritual component. It's actually to love the person.
You're dealing with athletes who may have no spiritual connection at this time at all.
Yeah, it's very true. And, in fact, if you go back to the historical history in regards to chaplaincy, the word derives from the word chaplo, a Latin phrase used by the church, which means to take God to the people. In the 50s, sports chaplaincy really became a huge component of sport. It had always been attached to sport. The bigger thing of playing sport, especially on Sunday, was taboo. And so as time progressed, you get into the 50s where one of the greatest sports league of all time started, the NFL. So what do I do now? I'm going to get paid to play, but I'm a Christian athlete. Yeah. So you have a lot of fight and a lot of conflict within the church culture. Hence the chaplo is the presence and the beginning of sport ministry, coming into sport, ministering, bringing God to the athlete on a Sunday, because he has no place to worship on that day. He might be from a different city. He's leaving the things that he has from his city behind, and now what? And so in a big sense, the chaplaincy can become a church for them. It becomes their way to actually worship God in a congregational format.
Dave Klassen is our guest today from the BC Lions and the Vancouver Canucks. Tell us a little bit about your athletic background.
Well, I grew up in Kelowna, BC, the land of peaches and beaches. What a great place to grow up. In high school, just coming out of grade 10, and I was like, what can I do? Like, what do I have? What's my skill? What's my ability? What is it going to take for me to get all these things I want in life? And so I wanted 3 things more than anything in the world. I wanted to be as rich as possible. I wanted to be as famous as possible. And if I wanted to have as many girlfriends as possible. And so I just kept going through my life until I got to this one place where I seemed to be better than the majority of my peers. And it was in athletics. Basketball was a huge focus with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, this, the revival of the NBA. And it just kind of hit me. I got to become an NBA player. Because if I become an NBA player like a Larry Bird, I'm going to get everything I wanted. And so I just started pouring my life into that game. Dividends started to pay off right away. I started to see the results of it. My name started getting in the papers. People started recruiting me. And I got a scholarship to a local college that was there. And in my first year, I was so excited, but scared. Like, am I going to make this team? But I wasn't worried about the making. I was more worried about what I was going to get out of it. I was going to achieve everything I ever wanted. And so in the first year, I became Rookie of the Year. And I got into my second. I was like, I am on my way. People knew me on the streets. People talked to me. Like, I was the BMOC, the big man on campus. And my second year started. Halfway through the year, the athletic director came to me and said, Dave, you're having a great year. This is unbelievable. He says, you keep playing this way, you might actually have a chance to be one of the best players in Canada. So at the end of the year, we go to the athletic banquet, and they announce my name, most valuable player of our team. Wow. And you have this walk when you walk up to get an award. It's like, I don't deserve it. But deep down, to be honest with you, through the whole year and through the whole time up to that, I was crying inside. Every time I saw my name in the paper, as Helen Baylor used to say very well, it was like people were giving me their applause or their love. Well done. We love you. We love you. And I just couldn't wait to get my name there. The thing for me is every time I receive an award, I get my name in the paper, it would just fade away. I was left with this emptiness feeling. And so this particular year, at the end of my second year, I won most valuable player of my team, most valuable player of the league, and then I became one of the top 10 junior college basketball players in Canada. And you know what? I won an All-Canadian that year. And so I was like, here we go, baby. I am on my way. And I remember going into my third year, I was like, wow, life is great. And then I had an injury. And it was a bad one. And I was out for 2 months, and I came back, and I just was never the same player. And you know what happens when you struggle into a place where you don't know what you're going to do and you don't know where to turn? I turned to God. Because you know what? I thought, if there is this all-powerful thing, because that's what I used to tell people. There's a power out there. I don't know what type of power he is, but I know he's out there. When you turn to God, he'll help you. And so that's what I did. A friend of mine told me about how to become a Christian, and I was like, okay, I'll become a Christian. So I became a Christian. But you know why? I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted him to give me everything I could. But it was almost the opposite. That whole year, it was almost like he took my skill away. I'd go to tournaments and games, and I'd hit a guy, and I was known as a notorious hard-nosed player. I would do anything to win, take any advantage. But now I'd knock a guy over in the middle of the key, and I'd go, hey, man, I'm really sorry. Can I help you up? And the guy would look at me like I'm stupid. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, man. The coaches would put me on the bench and go, Dave, where's your edge, man? Where's your tiger here? I'm like, what? Oh, I'm so sorry. Then I'd try to manufacture anger. I'd remember before games, I slapped myself in the face because I tried to make myself angry because I thought that's the way I got to play. But I get out there and I'm like, I just couldn't play like that anymore. I just didn't have it. And it was almost as if God put me through the Samson experience to really bring me to a place of need for him. And so I was at this place is it God that I want? Or is it that I just want God to make me into something so that I could actually just be more about myself? And in the end, it really was, I was so sick and tired of looking for something that didn't fill me. Finally, I found something that filled my life. It was a personal relationship with Jesus. It took me a long time, by the way. And so then I left basketball, and I thought, you know what? My whole dream of becoming an NBA player and making the NBA as a player is never going to happen, but that's okay. Because God's probably got something more, because that was the challenge he had in my heart. Dave, if you're willing to give me your life, I'll take you places you'll never believe. And I trusted him. I lived that way.
You accepted Christ as your Savior. Of course, this led you to being a chaplain.
Really, I've always felt I'm not a very gifted man, and I just felt God just keeps putting opportunities on my plate. My wife and I had been teaching for about 2.5, 3 years, and we'd come back down to Vancouver. We were going to finish our degrees at Fraser University. I decided I was going to try out for the basketball team. I had been away from basketball for 3-4 years, and I made the team, believe it or not. We were about to play about a month prior to it. The coach came to me and said, myself and another player, he said, we're starting up this JV team. He said, would you be interested in being like a player coach? Of course I was. Didn't have to go to practice. Like, my body had changed. I wasn't into the practice thing. I love basketball. And you know what? That started me on a journey for my first time of actually being a coach and a mentor with men. And I love that. And then from there, I got involved in this organization because they were on campus at Simon Fraser called Athletes in Action. And they were people who wanted to invest in others, to help them grow in their walk with God and teach them how to share their faith. And you know what? I knew that the God was in my heart. I just didn't know how to express it. It's kind of like my singing career, you know. I got a lot of singing in me. It just doesn't come out very well. And so finally I had this guy walk with me, and he showed me how to share my faith. And I became a lethal weapon on the campus. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like, you got to be kidding me. It's this easy. And so I just share so openly with my teammates. And men came to know the Lord. And I started getting involved in camp ministry. And I was like, this is the greatest job in the world. You can actually take the sport you love, and that time it was basketball, and you can actually talk about the God that's changed your life. And it seemed so natural to me. It seemed this way of life was just natural. Why wouldn't you want to play sport and have a personal relationship with Jesus? He's a power source. It's like, why would you want to be a toaster and not be plugged in? So my wife and I joined Athletes in Action, and we raised our support, and I started working with and Simon Fraser University, and I opened up the campus at UBC, and then opened up a chaplaincy at Trinity Western University, and we did sports camps all summer, and then the Vancouver Grizzlies came into town. And
you made the NBA.
And I made the NBA.
Dave Klassen, chaplain for the Vancouver Canucks and the BC Lions, has been our guest. Dave, you've articulated so wonderfully the need that everybody has, searching for answers, searching for really the plugged-in part of their life, which is Jesus Christ. Can you lead our listeners in a prayer that they can do so and receive Christ at this time?
Oh, I'd love to. Oh, Lord, you love us. You created the world in 5 days. And all those things you said in those 5 days, Lord, it was good. But on that 6th day, when you created man and woman, you said it was very good. So you want a very good relationship with us. So, Lord, I pray for all those people listening today and all those people around us that, Lord, you see us as very good. You want a very good relationship with us. But we can't have that with you unless we come to you. And we accept your Son into our life. Lord, you say you're preparing a great place for us in heaven, a mansion. You want us to come home. You're waiting for us. And so, Lord, we want to meet you, and the only way we can meet you is through accepting you, accepting your Son. So today, Lord, through faith, I pray that all those people who maybe are struggling or dealing with difficulties in their life, that, Lord, they will look to you, and they'll open their heart and ask your Son into their life. Lord, I pray for that today. Amen.
You have been listening to The Christian Athlete, My Story. If you feel, like our guest today, that you would like to receive Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, you can do so by praying a prayer with Bill as simple as this.
Dear God, I know I cannot live the perfect life you demand. Thank you for sending Jesus to die for my sins. I now ask Jesus to come into my heart, forgive my sins, and make me the person you want me to be.
If you have prayed to receive Christ, or would like more information in helping you make this most important decision in your life, we encourage you to visit our website at thechristianathletemystory.com. This is Barry Sharp, together with Bill Wilms, joining the Cross Country Singers in saying,
Jesus said be real.
Welcome. I'm Bill Wilms.
I'm Drago Adam.
Our program, The Christian Athlete, My Story. Been fortunate and happy to air this program many years now. Have over 50 interviews that we'd love to share with our listener, our viewer at this point, where athletes have made a decision in their life to follow Christ, to become believers. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Bill. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I know that your background is very athletic. You were in the New York Ranger organization as a goaltender, played in Madison Square Gardens, a number of other places. 3 years in the Ranger organization. How good was that?
Pretty amazing, Bill. Going back to talking about Madison Square Garden, I remember coming in through rookie camp and being promoted to the main camp, and Glenn Chico Resch,
The other end,
was my childhood idol. And I remember my very first exhibition game against the Philadelphia Flyers, and I'm standing there in the crease looking down the other end at my childhood idol. I was in a fog for the whole first period. It was just such a surreal experience, and we ended up losing the game 3-2. I played well, so I can feel good about that.
Yeah, we're just happy to have you aboard. Barry Sharp was such a great co-host, passed away a couple of years ago, gone to be with the Lord, and so happy to have you. Our guest today, Dave Klassen, is a chaplain for the BC Lions. He's also a chaplain with the Vancouver Canucks. To bring this right back to where it is today as we tape this, the BC Lions, a tremendous start in the CFL. If you're a CFL follower, 8-1 start in the Canadian Football League, a star quarterback, Nathan Rourke from Ontario, actually from Victoria now. Just a fabulous start, and yet he's out for the season with a foot injury. And you know what? There's a lot of things can happen on a team that a team chaplain is faced with and has a job to do. Was that a situation when you played? Were chaplains a thing in pro hockey, or for a matter of fact with the New West Bruins when you played here?
Not at all. I truly enjoyed listening to Dave's story, and I had no idea about the role of a chaplain. And listening to how he interacts with the players, the organization, I really wish that we had something like that. I remember playing in the minors in Colorado, and Doug Sotart was our assistant coach. And it was a bit of a unique dynamic because the year before, Doug Sotart was the backup goalie with the New York Rangers. And when they signed me, they bought out Doug Sotart, so they gave him a job in the organization as assistant coach. And Doug was a nice man. I really enjoyed working with him in Colorado. But I remember him, after one game, just tearing. I guess I didn't perform very well. And to this day, here we are, 35 years later, I can remember him just tearing a strip up me up and down. And he really, really kind of, I don't want to say destroyed my confidence, but because of how aggressive in nature and the dressing down I received, my nature was a little bit competitive, where I was like, well, you know what, I'm going to show you. But I went home and I was deeply, deeply distraught. Who did I have to talk to?
Nobody.
Absolutely nobody.
I want to read a quote, not sure exactly who said it, but if you recognize your player as a physical commodity, that's probably all you'll get. But if you recognize they've got emotional, mental, and spiritual needs, then you might actually get a better player out of it. The role of the chaplain is that important. Now, the NFL, every team in the National Football League has a team chaplain. Not sure if it's a paid job. I don't think it is. They get their expenses paid for, their travel paid for. But with Nathan Rourke, taking it back to the Lions, with Nathan Rourke out now with an operation on his ankle, there's got to be a little bit of turmoil inside athletes. How much playing time am I going to get? How am I reacting with the coach? I got a new quarterback. I want to go somewhere as an athlete to share my concerns. I understand with Dave Klassen that there isn't a talk about religion.
I love what Dave says. We deal with the whole person.
It's a relationship he's talking about. Yeah, it's biblically based, but it's not a, I mean, he's willing to talk to agnostics. He's willing to talk to atheists. He's willing to answer the questions that they might have.
No, absolutely. In a situation where, Rourke's injury is so severe, you couldn't have written a better script for how a rookie comes and emerges onto the scene like that and the success he's having. and you go through a severe injury on your leg, I mean, your mind's going to be full of questions and doubts. First of all, how long is it going to take for me to come back? Am I going to be able to come back and perform at the levels that I had? So being able to have somebody that's a safe space, that's not a coach, that's not an assistant coach, that you can talk to and be kind of open and vulnerable about those insecurities, that's hugely beneficial to the athlete, not just, personally, but mentally, that you can be vulnerable and express those doubts that you may be having and have a safe place for somebody to walk you through those.
You've said safe place twice now. I mean, that's obviously very, very important in a chaplain-player relationship. You've got to trust that this is going nowhere. This is between you and me. Marital problems that players might have, that would come up. I'm sure Dave has experienced infidelity situations, with what might happen with players. And, it's such an important position. I agree with you. When we did the interview with Dave, I learned a lot about that part of the job. And what's interesting when you do hear Dave, his goal was to be a player. In fact, he had some really good Canadian accolades in basketball. And it was almost like the injury that he got. I don't want to give away the interview, but it prepared him to go into the role that he now has. In other words, he had to suffer with the player aspect. He didn't make it to a certain level, then he got hurt, and now he's doing the role with the BC Lions that he's doing. So I just can't say enough about that part of a chaplain's life. And I want to mention something else. Chaplains are on the sidelines. Football chaplains are right there on the field. I mean, they're into it. They're just as much a part of the team as any of the players, but from a spiritual level.
Absolutely, I think a lot of players would take comfort in that. You because you have that safe space where somebody is there and he believes in you, and whether you're spiritual or not, there could be an element of prayer. When I went back to junior hockey, going back to our junior hockey days, I remember playing in the All-Star game, and Ken Hitchcock was the coach of the Western All-Star team. So this was my first exposure to Ken. Before the game, we all circled, and he led us through a prayer. It wasn't a super spiritual prayer, but I guarantee you, when you're nervous and you're a little bit on edge, and you have a prayer where it's something about safety, keeping all the players safe and being able to perform, and just having God's protection over the game itself, there's a little bit of peace that comes, whether you are Christian, an atheist, or agnostic. I've never met too many people who would complain about going through a process like that. And I found it deeply comforting, actually. It was the first time I was exposed to that. And I mean, my coaches, in junior hockey were John Chapman and Ernie Punch McLean, a legendary guy. Ernie had his own way of motivating you, and I guarantee you it didn't start with a prayer before the game.
By the way, we'll talk more about Ernie McLean and the great coach that he's been with Memorial Cups when we do our segment, our Christian Athlete, My Story, when we hear your story. The question about praying to win, I know there's a couple chaplains that have said, you know what, I'll let you, we got no problem with players praying to win. The only thing is, as a chaplain, I want you to know that if your team doesn't win, that doesn't mean your prayer wasn't answered.
No, it doesn't mean that God didn't answer that prayer.
Exactly. And, also, and we'll get to the interview pretty quick here, there's chaplains that have been involved in baptisms. I remember reading the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions, a couple years ago. They had, I think it was 4 or 5 guys, they baptized, their chaplain baptized in a swimming pool at the hotel they were staying in. I mean, how good is that? Not so much the baptism part, but addressing the spiritual needs of people.
Absolutely. I think it just goes back to what Dave says, the role about the chaplain is dealing with that whole person. And in that aspect where you're baptizing a player, there's a dealing with the spiritual element of that person's journey. And when they're to that point of where they want to commit their lives and take a significant step, I mean, they're doing something for themselves as a whole being. And there's a huge element to the chaplain supporting that journey for each athlete.
Last thing. The huddles of both teams at center field in football games, Canadian Football League, AFL, American Football League, NFL, all of those leagues, they have that huddle. What happens there?
Prayer. They have a time of prayer. Not even on the huddle, but you mostly see it in the NFL when there's a severe injury. Like what do you see? You see a group of players, both teams holding hands, praying for God's protection or healing, about that particular injured player. So it's very prevalent.
Drago, we're at a point too in our show, if you will, where we call it informally conversation with God. I don't know how a listener, a viewer feels, but this is an opportunity that we'd like to extend for you to have a conversation with God. Just tell him where you're at. If you felt led in any way, if you felt God speaking to you through the words of Dave Klassen, the chaplain to BC Lions, and you have anything that you want to share with God, tell him where you're at. Tell him what you feel. And if you don't, that's fine too. Dave so eloquently led, through a prayer of accepting the simple thing of saying, Lord, come into my life. Make me the person you want me to be. And if that spoke to you, if that was in any way encouraging, or for that matter, if you were just simply encouraged by this broadcast, if you were encouraged as a believer, that you say, hey, this strengthens my faith. I'm happy to hear that. It's like I say, encouraging. Then, tell God that too.
Absolutely, Bill. The great thing, the purpose of our episode here is really to share conversations that people are having, their journeys with God, and hopefully that they can feel maybe a sense of resonance with some of the stories that they're hearing, and answer some of the questions that they may have. And no matter where you're at in life, whether you're doing well or you're struggling, or maybe you've got health issues or things are going great, God's always there. And he's ready for us to turn and have a conversation with him at any time. And the purpose of this is to try to encourage people that they can just pray, ask God to come into their lives, and be there with them in whatever aspect, whatever part of their lives and their journey they're at. So if you want to find out more, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to our channel. There's going to be many videos that we're sharing about the different stories and testimonies that the Christian athlete has. We look forward to sharing those with you on a regular basis.